How are you all doing? Welcome to Ashes of Creation, our development update for April, our next home edition version of this. It's been an interesting ride for us. So you may hear kids hollering in the background, family walking behind
I
us,
gotcha.
doors opening and closing, whatever it may be,
Dogs barking,
cats
cats dropping
meowing.
from the ceiling.
Do you say cats on the ceiling?
I thought
You don't
that's
have
what they
cats on
do. I
yours?
don't know. I'm a
Drop
dog guy,
cats?
not a cat guy.
It's
Yeah,
true.
drop cats. I
But
saw
yeah,
it in The Simpsons. Oh wait, that was a pig.
there may be sounds that you
A
will hear
spider pig?
from our house. So just keeping that in mind as we move forward. Um, yeah, we'll be doing all the things. So we have a lot of stuff for you all today. A whole bunch of goodies. But if you're new here and you're curious about who we are, we'll go into that first and then we'll get right into all the goodies. We have so much stuff. So today we're going to have Stephen covering our studio update. We'll go into design stuff. We actually have some really cool footage, like actual live gameplay footage. I know you thought last time was the only footage we'd have, but we have more. And then we have our character art update. We have so much art from from the character team. And same with environment. We have a whole bunch of environment stuff. And you're actually going to see some of the environment art in the videos during the design portion, and then you'll get to see the screenshots as well. So it'll be very cool to see both juxtaposed. And then we just wanted to kind of give you guys a quick update. We have our new dev discussion coming up, so stay tuned for that. We were really excited to read all of your previous ones from the last one, which was what are some of your favorite things to do in online games that aren't progression related? And you all had some really interesting suggestions and things of that sort, and a lot of those things we're already doing. So that was cool to see. I think that for us, that's always nice. And then, of course, we have extended our monthly cosmetics. So just keeping that in mind, that will be June 3rd. If those days change, we'll let you know. So to kick things off, I guess, Stephen, if you want to kind of talk about who you are and then start off with the studio update.
Stephen Sharif, creative director at Intrepid Studios on Ashes of Creation. Studio update is we are chugging along here in our new reality of working from home from the pandemic that all of us are having to navigate through this interruption to our lives. But I think we're doing a great job. The studio has definitely risen to the occasion. We've been doing a really productive time so far this pandemic. So I'm really excited actually the progress that the team has made in prepping the Alpha 1 client for our testers, our players to jump in starting in May within the next few weeks. This is going to be an interesting road towards our Alpha 1 that we intend to have by fall. So I know a lot of the team are very excited to start squashing bugs and getting player feedback and doing this kind of soft rollout testing for Alpha 1. We
Yeah, and there
are
might be,
still
I think some people are just talking about like audio syncs and stuff like that. We are working from home, so we have kind of a weird setup. So we apologize if there's any like weirdness with the stream, but hopefully it all sounds good and you can at least understand what everyone's saying. All right, go forward, Stephen.
Yeah, sorry about that. But so yeah, so things are going well. We are still hiring. You may have noticed that there are hiring announcements that are made on our company's LinkedIn that the community team's been putting out. So um, that is up and running. Feel free to help us share those things. But yeah, ultimately, I think that's the extent of the studio update right now. It's really what we're
Yeah.
all focused on.
Our onboarding has been interesting. It's got to be weird from like, I think it's weird from our perspective, but it's got to be even weirder from somebody's perspective who's just
Oh,
starting,
for
right?
real. Like, just not even having met in person your boss is a little weird, right?
Yeah, so you're like, what's their tone? What's this like? Especially since we do use voice a lot more than like on camera stuff. So I think it's just very interesting times we live in. But in general, yeah, I think like Steven said, we've been kicking booty, working really hard. Obviously, there are some things that are just a little bit odd, like our live stream, but I think we're making
It's
it
not odd,
work.
it's awesome.
It's awesome that we can still do all of our work. And I think we are very fortunate. And I know Stephen has talked about this in the past. We're very fortunate that work in, in a place where we can work from home and everyone has what they need. And we've been trying to accommodate for all of those things. I know our IT guy's been personally chatting with everybody and trying to get everyone set up. So if there's anybody who needs something specifically for their home setup, that we're making sure that they have what they need. But yeah.
I noticed somebody asked if there's a position for remote janitorial work. We don't have any remote janitorial work available at this time.
I like that you answered that more seriously.
I know.
But yeah, moving on to our next thing. So we'll just get right into handing it over to the lovely Bard here. Are you going to sing for us?
Hello there.
No. Jeffrey Bard.
It only happens at bars like late at night.
Jeff actually brought us, well, we have a lot of footage for you all. So we're going to kind of switch over to that scene, and we're going to talk about the development and how things have been going while we watch some of this footage. So take it away.
Yeah, and just so you guys know, we recorded this a little late last night. It's just a couple of dungeons. Keep in mind, as you're watching this footage while we kind of chat, we're just giving this to you guys to see in the background. But as you're watching this, everything is still a work in progress. This is our first, very early part of the first alpha rollout. So you're going to see, I don't know if there's sound associated with it either. If that's going to play lightly in the background.
It will lightly play in the background.
Okay, cool. But you'll see things that, still need polishing. So don't consider this an end product. Just consider this a showing you guys development and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, this is just kind of like our playground where we check out the systems that we've built and kind of play through and make sure that it's fun and see what we need to fix and see what things we need to change and, figure out what's fun and what's not. So that's some of our gathering right there that you just saw. But yeah, sorry, that's my daughter in the background.
No, it's fine. Like I that's why I gave the preface for people. I was like, there are going to be kids, there are going to be cats, there are going to be dogs. It's,
Yeah, so this is like our hybrid combat system, kind of 2.0. That's certainly not our final iteration. There's stuff that needs to be fixed and stuff that needs to be changed. But you'll see that that there's a nice mix of both tab targeting and action skills happening in these fights. We spent a lot of time trying to figure out what the best controls are. We haven't quite nailed it yet, but I think we're getting pretty close. So this is basically a dungeon that should be tuned for 8 players, but I think they're going through with 5 players right now. We kind of turned things down a little bit so that we don't want the whole studio playtesting at the same time every day. So we just go in with small groups and we kind of get notes and take notes and go back and fix things and that kind of stuff.
And just to kind of add here, I know you guys will be noticing the effects. I mean, we have an amazing effects artist, Jim, who, just to give you guys an idea of how effects get implemented, we kind of run what are called first passes to get something in the world that can be present for these effects. And then as we kind of run through that first pass on all the skills and abilities, then we take additional time to go back and do a second pass and a third pass. And during each of those passes, they become more, closer to the final product, right? You're going to, like right now, you just saw a template that was, very, very large for a specific ability.
Super chunky.
That's very chunky, right? Or you see, some of the brightness or some of the size of the effects or some of the, templates are there. All that stuff gets refined. So keep that in mind as you're seeing stuff.
Yeah, Jim does deserve a raise. He's been doing a fantastic job. I think he's made our game look pretty incredible. So we're excited to have him, and it's been a lot of fun working with him. But yeah, so other things we've been working on, we've got sort of a rudimentary gathering and crafting system in. Again, it's pretty rudimentary, right? So it's just we're putting the skeleton together. So the first kind of foundational layout of those systems, tracking items, tracking resources, tracking all those things in the database. That's sort of what we've got set up now. There's some really relatively simple ways of interacting with those, but you start from the bottom and you work your way up.
And for those asking if there's going to be any information about classes, yes, we have a plan to basically put out quite a few articles and video content and pieces as we move into Alpha 1. They will all be part of an Alpha 1 series that will talk about each of those things, what you can expect from Alpha 1, and the current state that they'll be in and what kind of feedback we're looking for, and then also looking to the future. So keeping that in mind, we will have some pieces coming out. We implore you, actually, if you look at the links down right below me, if you can follow us on Ashes of Creation on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube, right here on Twitch, we'll be sharing a lot of cool information for you. And as we move into Alpha and as we move out of the NDA portion, we will be streaming more of that content too. So keeping that all in mind.
Yeah, and this dungeon here is actually a lower level dungeon, so this is something you'd probably tackle around like level 5 or level 10.
Right. And another thing to keep in mind about what you're seeing here is that this is actually us at level 10. So, those of you who are MMORPG veterans, there's a very limited select amount of skills that are available, at that type of level. Actually, what you're seeing here is probably more skills than you would typically have in another game, in another MMO at level 10. I mean, you see we have practically a full hotbar, if I recall correctly. Most of the MMOs I've played at level 10, you maybe have 3-4 skills tops to kind of play with from an active standpoint. But just keep in mind the intended top level for release is level 50. So there's still a much greater way to go when it comes to the skill fidelity and interactions and synchronization that's available for players.
Yeah, and also we're just trying to establish like the core identity of these classes too. So that's why we're starting with like a sort of limited kit, just so we can kind of figure out like, okay, this feels good for the cleric. Let's make sure that like we kind of keep this going up through the levels so that we don't lose that flavor or that feeling of making a cleric feel cleric-y. So we do that with each class just to make sure that like, okay, these skills fit well together, or these skills, this one doesn't quite match the rest of what there's going on there, and it doesn't make sense in sort of how I play, so let's maybe take that out and give that to another class or something along those lines. So that's why we start with a small group of characters first, and then we kind of build out from there.
And there's a question here asking, does that mean that it's going to be a relatively longer process to get to level 10 than a typical MMO that we've played before?
We have a relatively long time horizon for our leveling compared to other games.
I mean, one of the things I would say with regards to like leveling times is if you were to kind of classify, I mean, for those of you out there who have a lot of MMO experience, if you were to kind of classify our leveling time to more casual or more hardcore, I would say we're towards the more hardcore leveling time, but we're not, as far as some of those very grindy games. But we're definitely not going to be a max level in under a week type game. This is something that we want, players to need to invest some time and effort into. There's going to be many different paths towards leveling. It's not going to all be housed within your adventuring class and going out and killing monsters. So in that way, obviously, many of you guys know if you've been following Ashes of Creation, our ideal is to give a lot of progression paths so that different play styles get catered to and are relevant. But the amount of time to level is something that's going to be more on the hardcore side, but not all the way.
And I'm switching over to our next little dungeon here that we played through. If you want to talk a little bit about that. And there are quite a few other questions in chat regarding specifically mana and how that's going to work. Is it going to be typical as like other types of MMOs where as a cleric you're going to have to manage that resource, etc.?
Yeah, any resource that we give you is going to be something that is managed, right? If we don't want you to manage it, then we wouldn't put it in the game, right? So mana will be consequential. It won't be just a bar that you don't pay attention to. If you're a mage or you're a cleric or even if you're a tank, right, it's a resource that you can draw on to do things to the world, and you have to be careful about how you use it.
Yeah, some of the early discussions that Jeff and I had back in 2016, I think, when we would do our 8-hour-long roundtable discussions, was the relevance of downtime. Basically, in a lot of the older MMOs that we've been accustomed to playing, you kind of mana-oriented classes run through their mana and then have to kind of like sit down to regenerate. Exactly. And that wasn't very. I will say, at first in that discussion, I was a little bit on the side of like, yeah, but there should be a cost-benefit ratio between your effectiveness in combat and the amount of downtime that you should have. And I think Jeff maybe illuminated a little bit more to me, the idea of having, compelling gameplay that's present through a majority of your experience, and sitting is not very compelling.
No.
So I think we've kind of incorporated that philosophy within the core gameplay loop of mana-driven classes as well as health-driven classes, and incorporated mechanics that I think eliminate the sitting quote-unquote downtime as opposed to otherwise.
Yeah, but still make it something you have to manage, right? Like you still interact
Exactly.
with that bar, and that bar is still very important to you.
We have another question that is, what is the 1+ after the enemies?
So the 1+
don't look
means...
at that.
Is there, so
just a
figure we might as well
placeholder.
answer.
It's mostly for us to understand like the population in the world, but it means that this troll is 1 level higher than you, and it is an elite.
Right. So typically the way that we would communicate that type of information once the UI is fully implemented would be basically the set dressing of the nameplate. So if you were to select a monster or a mob, you would notice the nameplate either would have a differing color that would illuminate you kind of to what its level position is based on yours in comparison. And then additionally, if it were an elite or a dungeon boss or a world boss, you would have additional filigree around the actual nameplate itself that would kind of designate, hey, this guy's a little bit beefier, or this girl's a little bit beefier than your typical trash mob.
Cool. And others are asking, can I have all the skills of my class, or will I have to pick and choose one?
You will have to pick and choose. This is more definitely like a game based on builds. So you will build your character out based on your skill tree. But you will be having to make choices. You will, by choosing something, you're giving up something else, and that's always going to be the case in Ashes of Creation.
And then there's some other questions regarding, are there going to be hard CCs? Specifically, they're asking in regards to PvE.
Hard CCs as in
like crowd control,
meaning like complete lockdown.
Yeah, I would
assume
assume
absolutely hard CCs that are available. Yes, but keep in mind, in my opinion, right, when you have to balance between the application of a skill in PvE versus PvP, one of the biggest components, obviously, from CC perspective, is going to be mitigating returns or diminishing returns. Those are something that are going to be very prevalent, not just from a PvP perspective, but also from a PvE perspective as well.
And we've gotten this question before, but people are sorry, I got confused. Actually, people are wondering if they're going to be able to see targets. So in a lot of games, you can see like the target.
Absolutely. Oh yeah. Yeah, assisting, basically, as I call that, right? Assisting, being able to target off a target. That's a very important component of group-based combat, whether it be PvE or PvP. Additionally, group leaders, and they'll be able to delegate this responsibility to other party members, will be able to apply over-the-head icons to targets as well, so that they can designate essentially like, hey, this is your attack target, this is the CC target, this is the kite target, kind of that.
Mm-hmm. And I know this is the one that we've gotten a few times before. People are wondering if the max size party is going to be 5 or what is planned. Primarily just because they're seeing 5 here.
It's 8. Yeah, we've said this in the past. It is 8. That is kind of how we are designing group combat as around an 8-player party based off of our 8 different archetypes. That's our design philosophy there.
And then people are noticing that the minimap has little blips for enemies. Are there going to be abilities or ways for people to spec to get more information on the minimap, or will that information always be available to a user?
That's something we want to do with our utility skills. So seeing the mobs on the minimap is probably not going to be a thing that everybody gets access to. That will probably be relegated to certain classes and certain abilities of certain classes. That's mainly just there for us to kind of figure out what our population is actually doing in the level at a glance. So it's more for us than it is for people, especially like in a dungeon like this. We don't really necessarily want to give away where all the mobs are unless you are a class that is very good at figuring out where the mobs are.
Cool. People have a lot of questions today, so I'm trying to grab them when I can see them. But is there anything else that you want to kind of share, Jeff, that you all have been working on? I know it's been a very long process. You have this huge list of things that you guys have been just pumping out. It's been really cool for us, like on the community and like marketing side, because we're getting to see all the cool stuff that we get to share with everybody. For instance, like I said, this live stream might go a little longer than an hour.
Yeah, I mean, it's really good to start feeling stuff kind of come together, like in aggregate, right? It's not like any one given thing, although I'm pretty stoked about how the mages turned out so far. It's a really fun class to play. I think just overall, just kind of seeing where we've come has been kind of the most fulfilling part for me. We've come a very long way in a very short amount of time, and we continue to make pretty incredible strides, every couple of months. So, it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think it's been interesting.
Yeah, I think.
Go for it. Sorry, Steve.
Sorry. I was just going to say, I think one of the biggest communication points from, us as a studio to our community, obviously being appreciative of the support and, you guys giving feedback and participating in discussion on Discord, on forums, on Reddit, on different social channels. Those are all very important. Participating in our dev discussions, those are all very important. But, I think the most important aspect from us to you is our goal is to make sure that this game answers all of the promises, obviously, that we've made from a mechanic standpoint at launch. And additionally, most importantly, from a quality perspective, that our launch is something that is above reproach, is flawless, right? You know what I mean? Like
Steven expects
I've
a lot
gone through
from
a
us.
lot of different. I do expect a lot, but you know what? I think that we've been able to put together an amazing team that can answer that call. One of the things for me as an MMO player that I've experienced in the past is the launch day is such an important day. I mean, especially in games that have long tail type progression and player driven mechanics. Launch day is the foundation for those things. So as we go through this Alpha 1 and as we go through Alpha 2, our goal is to make sure we get it right, and that obviously might involve additional time, but we're going to keep you a part of the process every way as we continue to develop and iterate. That's the promise we've made to the community.
Yeah.
MMOs only get one launch unless you have all the money in the world.
Right.
We always, especially for a group that's relatively unknown, right? We're not Blizzard, we're not Activision. We have to really make sure that we put all our ducks in a row and have a really good launch. So it's really important to the whole team that we do this right.
Yeah, and I think obviously we're going to move into talking about our character stuff, but I think from our perspective, we might not be always showing exactly what you want to see all the time, I think is kind of a thing that I just want to put out there, because it is a process. And obviously we're showing our development process. We're showing some of the gritty stuff. And it's been, I think, interesting to see Steven and Jeff and Bacon, because we're all kind of perfectionists. And when they look at stuff, they're like, oh, that's not ready to share. And it's like, but the whole goal for us has been to share the process of development. And so I think from our perspective, we also want to do that in a very professional manner. So hopefully the way that we've been doing it through our creation videos, our dev diaries, we have more of those planned. And obviously through our development update post here, we hope that we can share those things with you all in a way that also presents it professionally for us as well. I guess, is that the right way to explain it? I'm trying to word that. Yeah. So we have a lot of assets here. And I think I'll kind of let Jeff and Steven talk a bit about this. So the first topic here is going to be about the heads that are being created for the different races, and then also hair as we move into that.
Yeah, I think that what you're seeing here, unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to go through the assets prior to. I might not have shown this one. I don't know about the color of the background, but I think what this is trying to communicate is there's a great variation that's going to be available from a character standpoint when creating your character, especially around the face, whether it be the shape, the jawline, the cheeks, the ears, the nose, the lips. We want to provide a lot of options and agency to the player to customize their character appearance. So here you're kind of seeing the scale across that deformation that's available to the player when they're in the character creator screen. Somebody says he looks stoned.
Yeah, his eyes are a little red.
Oh no.
For this one specifically, Catkins wanted me, or Chris Atkins, the one, he's been on our stream a few times if you want to check that out. He kind of was telling me that this is like the process of, Steven and them having discussions regarding hair and getting it to the point where they're happy with it. And we'll kind of show off some of those pairs.
Right.
And we've been showing those off through our social as well.
Mm-hmm. Right. A lot of art. I mean, just to communicate to you guys again, the process. A lot of art goes through what are called first pass iterations, right? Where you want to get something into the engine, to kind of represent the direction that we're going to go in. And then as time goes on and you've gotten a lot of that first passes in, then you go back and do the second and third passes. So, initially we had hair that we weren't, obviously was first pass hair and we wanted to continue to refine. This would be probably kind of the second pass refinement that's going to go through many different iterations to kind of make that hair, higher fidelity, a little better looking, available to the character, and you'll see some of those examples. But these are kind of the beard styles. I think that if you guys have been following on social media, we've shown a few of these on Twitter and stuff that are available. This would be the Valoon. The Valoons kind of having varying degrees of beards that become available.
Yeah, so we've been kind of showing a lot of all of the different beards and hair types and things of that sort. So definitely stay tuned and watch us on social. We definitely share things. And then the next topic we're going to be going into is a lot of the armors that have been being worked on. And we may have shown a little bit of progress on these in the past, but now we're continually iterating on them. And I'll let Stephen and Jeff kind of talk over these as I go through them.
Yeah, so I mean, just to give you guys kind of an idea on, how armors get incorporated, obviously because we're allowing the players to mix and match different pieces of armor, they're not just a pre-constructed one set that's going to be available. These pieces have to kind of be able to live naturally with each other as well and not look out of place when you have a lion set with a wolf set, pauldron and chest, right? They have to still look good together. So as the character team kind of determines these geos that get created of the different pieces, from the pauldrons to the guards to the chest to the leggings to the boots to the gloves, all of these things have to be constructed in a way that they live naturally with the other pieces of different geo that exists within the same tier. So obviously our character armor sets are going to live within different tiers. You're going to have a different silhouette of armor at levels 1 through 10 than you will have at 40 through 50. They're going to progress, get naturally more ornate, larger, different kind of presence. That's relevant not just from a visual standpoint, but also from a player threat assessment. If I see someone in the distance, I get a pretty good understanding of what I'm getting into based off of the silhouette. Is it a plate armor wear? Is it a cloth armor wear? Are they going to be level 50? Those are types of information that I can glean just from sight of a character at a distance. So the character team has been rock stars here in creating, well, rock stars in the sense of, they've been stars. Let me just say they've been stars. They've been stars. they've been stars in the sense of kind of creating these different sets that are available, that then the kind of concept and design team says, okay, I want to see, a golden wolf, leather set. And thematically, they'll take the geo pieces that they've pre-constructed for a varying degree of representations of this armor. They'll mix and match to create the golden wolf armor set, and then they'll apply thematic components. They'll change out the materials, they'll change the colors to kind of match what the design direction is in that regard.
A lot of these looks you're seeing right here are all like relatively NPC looks. So there'll be things you see across. Ooh, there's a fishing pole.
That's the next.
There'll be things you'll see across town. We really want to make sure that the sort of NPC population feels really diverse, and these places are metropolitan and kind of exciting and have, a full character to them. So our character team has been knocking these out like crazy, and they're amazing.
Yeah, they've been killing it and making the world feel really vibrant, which is nice. And all the colors, it's cool to see more of the colors coming in now that we've gotten more of those. Now, the next thing, we've showed off fishing in our playthrough last time, but I kind of also wanted to show off the process of creating these things, because although, you see the fishing and you see us doing this casting and you see the fish in the water, you don't realize sometimes how much work goes into all these tiny little pieces. So I wanted to kind of show the progress of this, and if you all want to talk over it while I kind of showcase that, that'd be lovely.
Fishing. Sure. I haven't seen this yet.
Fishing.
So I'm waiting to see what the content is before I start talking over it.
So it's the fishing. It's the creation of the fishing pole and then the fish.
Oh, gotcha. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I think that part of creating these systems, especially systems like fishing, that have a specific progressive route requiring higher level equipment, harvesting tools, so to speak, before you're capable of actually harvesting specific types of fish that yield greater materials for players. I mean, that's all part of the progression of that system. Accompanying that, obviously, is going to be the detail behind, those tools reflecting the more ornate and higher profession quality that players have. So, in these, you're seeing. Are we running a video or something? I can't.
I'm just going through them while you're talking.
Oh, you're just going through pictures. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought I was waiting for like a video.
No.
Yeah. So I mean, here you're seeing different types of fish. Obviously, these all exist probably within the same tier of the fishing profession. And then as as the profession levels up, you're going to have access to larger, fish, to even perhaps more dangerous fish. We'll see. But these are things that players get access to as they level up that progression.
And tongs. I love the tongs. They look so cool. I just had to throw them in here, so you see tongs
They
too.
look great.
Oh, the tongs? Yeah, the tongs are really more of an ambience type item, at least with regards to their application for Alpha 1. These are things you're going to see NPCs having from a prop standpoint that just kind of gives, more detailed life to the world around you. It's easy to slap a NPC there and call him a blacksmith. It's an extra step if we include prop-specific tools for the tongs, exactly. Tongs for the specific NPCs that kind of set dresses them nicely for the world, right? It's all about immersion. We're going for a very high quality type of presentation when it comes to the world, and this is just an example of that quality.
And sorry, my cat's making a lot of noise in the background. They're playing with a toy together. The next thing is going to be a little bit of a video, a couple videos actually, of mounting horses. Obviously, this is still a work in progress, so I want to set that preference for you all, or precedence for you all. But you've seen us mounting the horses whenever we did the long playthrough before, and there wasn't a mount and dismount animation. Those are all in the works. They're coming in. So again, they're in the early process. So we'll show a little bit of that.
Cool.
Got a little dwarf guy. He's mounted.
Yeah, I mean, to give some context here, going back obviously to the first pass, second pass type thing, but direction on the mounting, the time to mount, the game is a little bit more faster paced than probably most of the older MMOs out there that we've experienced. And in that regard, we want to make sure that it's not cumbersome to kind of quickly mount a steed and start moving, especially not just from a raid component aspect. I mean, obviously a lot of raids include positioning, and we want players to be able to quickly position as far as their skill is determined, but also from a PvP perspective, it's important, that there are components there where mobility is a factor, and steeds play a very important role in mobility. So,
Yeah. And then, of course, next up we have all of the lovely things from our environment team. Unless y'all wanted to talk about anything else character related.
No, I'm good.
I know before the stream started, a lot of people were asking about orc stuff, so I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that, Stephen, at all.
Orc stuff.
Yeah.
You will be seeing orc stuff in the future. Congratulations.
Nice.
there is there's a lot of stuff we have yet to roll out, and that stuff is being worked on.
There's so much stuff we have to roll out.
Yeah.
I know.
Orcs are really exciting. I'm hyped. We've definitely been excited to see those because it's very, very different. But moving on to our environment team, the lovely Bacon and his team has shared with us a whole bunch of stuff. So the first thing is this Nakua Naval Caravan. You've probably seen some of the cosmetics that we've made that are similar to this. So I'll let you talk a little bit about that before we move on to the Nakua structures.
Sure. So what you're seeing here, I believe these are. I believe these are. Yeah, but they're water-based caravans. So
yes.
This is when. So
Naval.
Okay, so to give you guys an understanding, you have land-based caravans that carry goods, obviously, and get initiated by yourself. You are essentially the caravan at that point. You drive it and direct it. Caravans are capable of transitioning from land to naval caravan. So if you start out as a land-based caravan and you move to the coast and you want to move into the water, there's going to be a little transition period there. It's going to be a little construction kind of site. You're not going to have to do anything. It's just going to be a timer, right? So that you can't quickly move between land and water. It's going to be probably in the matter of a minute to 2 minutes. There's a little bit of vulnerability in that regard. But when you do transition then from land to water, these are examples of some water-based caravan skins that are available, and what that looks like a little bit. Obviously, the size of the capacity might change. The size of the vessel that you have from a merchant standpoint. By default, players are going to have representations of their caravans that are based off of race. So that's going to influence the types of animals that are carrying the caravan or moving the caravan forward. And then they'll be able to apply caravan skins as necessary. That will change that appearance.
Cool. And next up, we have a whole bunch of structures. Now, you've seen a lot of the concept of these structures. You've seen the concept of the vibe and the feel of what they're trying to go for with the villages and the towns and so on and so forth as for the Nakua. But now you're getting to see the actual structures that have been created. And I will agree with Bacon. The structures are almost very similar to the concepts. They did such a good job. It's amazing.
Yeah, we have a great pipeline when it comes to our concept team providing both character and environment, the direction and the details of specific items. But at the same time, also, our character and environment teams have had to work without concept art and just kind of description and direction from myself or Jeff or something. So, they pull it off amazingly well. And these specific assets were created from, I believe it was Ryan's concepting on the Nakua assets. So, all of these things go to construct the type of environment and reflect the culture of these specific races. And I mean, it's such a huge project just with regards to the number of races that we represent. And it's not so much the fact that we have 9 races, but the fact that those 9 races are coupled with specific cultures that have to be architecturally represented in each of the node stages of development. So when we are creating, these cultures, we're creating the camp assets to the encampment to the village assets that are more, a village size with thatched roofs and stuff like that, to transition to town, which are more brick oriented and solid material states, to cities and metropolises, which then just take it to the next level of size, just kind of representing these large metropolitan fantasy areas. Having to do that 9 times over from an asset production standpoint with these different races is a very large order, and the environment team has been doing an exceptional job in presenting those.
It's not even just the structures, right? Like, it's all the props that support those structures as well.
Right.
So you're talking about barrels and boxes and bookshelves and furniture. So all of that stuff has to be represented too and be culturally themed. So it's gigantic. And like Steven said, our environment team is just kicking ass.
Yeah, doing amazing stuff. And moving on from there, we have some cool plants that have been created.
Right. So
Beautiful.
I think this is Mia Del Casino. She has been working on some of the harvestables that are present in Alpha 1. There's obviously, because we have such an in-depth artisanship system, that requires a very, very wide foundation from a material and resource and gathering standpoint. There's a large crafting game in Ashes of Creation, and starting the work on presenting these resources in the wild from a raw gatherable standpoint, really has a lot of assets that need to be created, and she's gotten started on the floral aspects of those. I'm not sure if she did also the ore related stuff as well.
I'm not sure who made the ores.
That might have been Mike.
But yeah.
And then we have the yarrow trees, which I think she did these, right? Because she's done a lot of the trees.
Yeah, I think she's doing all the trees now.
Floral and trees and stuff. Yeah, she's done an amazing job, and just I think some of the things that we want to approach from a visual aesthetic standpoint is making sure that these harvestables exist naturally within the scene, because a lot of times I think, and we're going to go back and revisit kind of the effects that are related to this. We kind of put a little bit, I think, over effects on them, but we want players to be attracted and kind of test these systems out in these stages. But making sure that this is an immersive environment includes making sure that the harvestables are also a part of that environment.
All right. And then we've got this beautiful castle.
Some people may have seen that castle before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's actually the old castle set that Bacon made that was actually part of Alpha Zero as well. I think it's been revamped a little bit. It's now a stronghold in the Alpha Zero island. And I think also that's an old picture of the volcano that's got completely revamped.
I don't know. He shared this with me. I think it was specifically for the building, probably.
Yeah.
And then you saw a lot of the dungeon pictures. They are working a lot on the lighting. So this is kind of to give the mood of the lighting. And I'll let Steven and Jeff kind of talk over this as I just go through all these photos because there's a lot of them. And you saw us running through this dungeon as well. But these are kind of like the more high-res photos.
Yeah, so this is what we're calling internally the Junior Dungeon. We'll have an official name later. But one of the things that we want to have in our dungeons and sort of our playable spaces is a sense of verticality. So, it's a little bit boring to just experience a one-level dungeon, and having lots of nooks and crannies and heights to play with allows us to do some more interesting things gameplay-wise. So that's a thing that you're going to see over and over again. And this dungeon kind of does a pretty good job of explaining that.
Yeah, I think one of the most important aspects of the graphical representation of the game obviously is lighting. And Devin has been doing an amazing job with regards to kind of setting the lighting in these different areas to make them very moody. I think that's one of probably the adjectives we would use to describe, the environments is that moodiness there, and that gets conveyed predominantly from these different lighting, these different atmospheric effects. that become present, and that's a very important part of the process in setting these areas apart from each other.
Yeah, I love that. Like some of these, it's hard to tell if it's a concept piece or not. It's pretty amazing.
They're all in-game screenshots. These are not concept pieces, but they are just beautiful. So yeah, that's it for the environment side of things. Been an interesting journey. I'm going to kind of switch over to kind of showing off the gameplay footage again while we answer some questions, if y'all are okay with that, unless you have something else you want to add on the environment side.
Keep kicking ass, environment.
Yeah, I think our teams have done an amazing job, just as the design team has and the engineering team has. I mean, there's no shortage of work that has to be done, but I will say that everybody has on the team I just continually am impressed, and I hope you guys are, by the progress you're seeing in bringing Ashes of Creation to life.
All right, cool. Let me grab the questions and we'll start answering them. We will grab some questions from the chat as well, but I want to get through all the questions that are from our community forums. We always put these out early, so if you want to be part of that, make sure you're following us on all of our social channels, specifically Twitter and Facebook, and on our forums, because we always post the thread there a week in advance so that you have some time to ask your questions. Toast is amazing, and she goes through and gives you your answers. So even if your question is not answered live on the stream, it's usually because we've already answered it before, and she gives you those answers in the thread. So I just want to give her a shout out for taking the time to sit there and answer all those questions, because there's a lot. So the first one we have here is from Jalan, and they said, you've mentioned castle regions that are static and zones of influences that are more flexible, but can you go into more details about the economic regions specifically?
So the economic regions, as well as the castle regions, share the same static boundaries, and those are more geographical in nature. So they align with mountain passes, with rivers, with oceans. These are kind of the geographical divisions of the world that we will utilize to determine yield rates of caravan trades and the transit of goods and kind of the boundaries of these warehouse deposits, the influence of the castle to apply tax rates to nodes within its region. These are static because we, as the design team, want to be able to set more definitive interactions from an economic standpoint, as well as from the castle's influence standpoint. Now, the way that contrasts with respects to the node's zone of influence and its boundaries and how they progress, those are more fluid and are more determined by the surrounding events of other relational nodes. Do they have a competing node near them? Is that node about to threshold to the next stage? Can I take that node over? Is there a closer border to a coast? Do I have, there's a lot of different components of that algorithm. So yeah, hopefully that eliminates a little bit of the differences between the two.
All right. Our next question is from Magic Man, and the question is, can we expect to see a reticle like in Apocalypse, which would be tied to mouse movement in Alpha 1, or will it be added later on?
It's there right now. I don't know if these guys actually ever went into action modes. We have two modes.
I think Steven did.
Now. The MMO mode and then the action mode. And the action mode will bring up a reticle. Stuff that can be targeted that way will point toward the reticle, and it'll be very close to a third-person action game at that point. Or you can just press the toggle button and switch back to MMO mode, and everything kind of goes back to tap targeting.
Hey, can we put the gameplay on full screen mode while we answer questions?
Yeah.
I know that we have beautiful faces, but they're probably tired of seeing them. No, I'm just kidding.
Sure.
My fuzzy face.
The next question that we have is from Solarium, and the question is, will the character creator allow for elves to appear bulky and tanky to match their class, or will they be limited to more sleek, agile options as
So there's going to be a degree of acceptable deformation when it comes to the different races, and there's also going to be kind of body types that you can cycle between to start them at the middle of that deformation range. But generally, to ask your question, there are going to be confinements to the degree at which you may manipulate a race's a body type. You're not going to be able to turn your elf. Yeah, you're not going to be able to turn your elf into the size of a Renkai, right? Yeah. So, that's something to keep in mind.
Cool. Our next question is from, and I apologize if I pronounce people's names wrong, Hijurim, and they want to know, will there be wieldable banners a la Guild Wars, either summonable through skills or as an ordinary weapon you can just buy and own?
There won't be a banner that you can buy as a weapon. There may be, specifically for certain variants of the Bard archetype, there may be banner-oriented skills that, from a flavor standpoint, kind of use the banner idea. There might also be a position within a guild that can be assigned as part of an officership that have active skills if the guild progresses, if the guild chooses to spec out those types of skills, that would have a flavor of bannerdom that could be present on a battlefield as well. This would help, some of the ideas I had early on about guild skills is, it's one thing to just, in the previous games we've all probably played, to go into a guild roster and say, hey, you're an officer, and what does that mean? Oh, okay, well, you have certain, limited functions from a permission standpoint. Access the guild warehouse, maybe interact with the guild hall. That's kind of the extent of it. But I think, one of the things that I wanted to achieve early on about the roles of a guild, to have it mean something on the battlefield, to relate to this question, banners represent kind of a cohesive nature on a battlefield traditionally, to kind of rally the troops. They inspire, they provide, a boost to people's courage. So if that were to be something that were incorporated as an active skill that could only be used by certain officers that are allocated in the guild roster, then they would have a significant role in the positioning of troops when it comes to a castle siege field or a node siege field or a battleground. Players are going to be cognizant of, hey, where is my officer at? And if I am near that officer when he uses that quote-unquote bannered skill, I am going to receive a benefit or a buff. Those are important things.
All right. And our next question is from Adelim, and they want to know, will bosses or monsters give a visual representation of their degradation while fighting, like armor breaking, wounds appearing, etc.?
Likely not. There may be some special cases where we do something like that, but generally, that stuff is really expensive from a development standpoint and a time and manpower kind of place. It would be great if we could, but we will probably do that in some cases where it's really important, but not generally.
All right. Our next question is from Ventharian, and they would like to know, what will happen to stored materials and nodes, such as in banks or warehouses, not in freeholds, after a successful node siege and destruction?
Depending on the type of item, if it's a material-based item, if it's a crafting component or a raw gatherable or a processed good, those specific types of items will become lost. A portion of them will be lost and will become available to the victors of the siege as spoils of war. There's a declaration, as all of you know probably, there's a declaration period that exists. The way that we prohibit players from moving goods out of the depositories within a node post siege declaration is those specific goods become locked during the declaration period. So that incentivizes even further the necessity of players to contribute to the defense of a city. It also elevates the need for that city to politically gain allies among other nodes, so that they can protect the collective goods of the citizens.
All right.
It also keeps people from hoarding, and makes sure that stuff continues to go into and out of the economy.
Right. One of the really important things about the concept of risk versus reward, which is a very central tenet in all of the philosophical designs we have for the game, is that, something can't, if you're a citizen of a node and you ride that node all the way to Metropolis stage, and you bank everything you own, you put all your eggs into that basket. That's a very high risk. Now, it's a high reward as well because it centralizes your access to certain things, and there's a benefit that comes with it. But risk and opportunity oftentimes go hand in hand. So we wanted to convey that type of design in the game.
Right. Anything else you all want to add on that front? Okay. Noct has our next question, which is, what is the team's stance on moving while casting? Is it more like World of Warcraft, where it's the exception, or Guild Wars 2, where it's the rule?
I think that generally we want to tend to be more mobile in our classes. I think that it's a fundamentally old school philosophy to have a lot of stuck in place type skills. That isn't to say we won't have skills that have mobility restriction on them that require you to channel or require a casting time where you can't move. But I think it's a blend between the two. It's neither extreme. I think there are going to be examples. Jeff, obviously you can weigh in, but examples of both in all of the classes.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be something that you can spec around too. Again, it's going to be a risk reward thing. We put a lot of thought into what skills are overpowered or have kind of this overpowering nature to them, and those are the kinds of skills that we'll generally find that will be like in place type of skills where you are now at risk if you are going to cast a spell, but there's a big reward if you do manage to get it off.
Right.
Awesome. Zolo's question is, as a dedicated citizen, can I donate my obsolete gear to my node in order to help upgrade the defensive abilities of NPCs or bolster the strengths of caravans?
Not directly. You won't be able to just directly give gear to the node in that regard. You can indirectly participate in helping bring resources to the node that help to boost defenses, maybe strengthen the walls and or the gates that help to level up, the barracks that might then in turn level up the mercenaries that the mayor has the ability to purchase or hire. But no, you won't be able to directly just say, this is my old gear, I'm giving it to you. Now, there are deconstruction options that are available that break down old gear into certain base components that are integral in enchantments and in different gear upgrades, and those can also again indirectly aid. But yeah.
All right. And Bior has our next question, which is, what is your take on rollbacks? Last resort only, or something to be used frequently if problems and bugs appear?
Rollbacks are
Definitely
awful.
not frequently.
Yeah, I'm going to let you know from the development side, it is it's a lot of work.
They're so problematic. They're so problematic. It really is generally like even not just from like the player side, but from a technical side, like especially like when you're talking about like quest progression and all that kind of stuff. It's a last resort kind of thing.
It is definitely last resort. I think that some of the ways that we are setting up the architecture for our database and the persistence of items and progression in the game allows us to be able to address more granularly the issues that might come up. I think that obviously rollbacks as a last result really are utilized when the effects of a specific exploit and or game-breaking bug are so prevalent and widespread within a server that it does not make sense to try to run through with a fine-tooth comb the implications of said exploit or issue. That is the scenario in which you would utilize a rollback. So it's not to say that there couldn't potentially be a problem that would force our hand to do so, but again, as Jeff said, that's a last resort.
All right, moving on to the next question, which is from Grizzly Chips, which is a funny name. I like it. Will there be criminal activities for PvE content, like stealing from shops or pickpocketing NPCs?
Oh, absolutely. There will be a whole host of cool and fun interactions that relate to the storylines, either of specific organizations or quests, or kind of fun skullduggery that occurs in those things, right, Jeff?
Skullduggery is like my favorite word.
I love that word. Yeah, it's a really fun word.
But yeah, you'll probably see it more as like quest-related kind of skullduggery, rather than like open Skyrim style, like I'm going to go pickpocket everybody in this town, right, kind of thing. But there will be definitely aspects to that, especially related to the organization that you're a part of.
I also like the word spelunking. It's just fun to say.
It is a fun word.
Well, you can see in the game, I think we're spelunking right now, sort
True.
of. True.
We kind of are, yeah.
It's like a mine shaft.
I like when we went around the corner, I was like, I think it's this way. Bob's Your Uncle has our next question, which is, how big can we expect the group mounts unlocked through the Kickstarter stretch goals to be? Rhino, elephant-sized, perhaps?
Elephant size is probably right.
Yeah, I would say. I think that even specifically with regards to some of the group mounts that we had displayed from the Kickstarter rewards, they were elephant-sized. In fact, I think they were larger, maybe a little larger than elephant-sized.
But yeah, probably some that are even bigger than that.
Yeah, but the group, I mean, the group kind of the group mount is going to be a very difficult mount to achieve. But once achieved, it's going to be very fun and pivotal, I think, mount in gameplay. So the idea there is to have them grand. Yeah.
All right. And our next question is from Birdie. Not Birdie, sorry. Ruvida, who wants to know, when thinking about moving resources, will players be able to get storage in different cities or only in the node they're a citizen of?
No, you'll have access to the storage facilities of other cities. You can visit the warehouse of other cities, and you can store items there. The important thing about storing material goods, processed goods, crafting components, raw gatherables, those specific types of items have a risk in transit. So whether they're on your person, your body, your character, or they're in a mule, or they're in a caravan, the death of either of those things will result in the partial loss of those goods, or even full loss, depending on the transit style. So getting those things to a specific node may be difficult from a transfer standpoint. However, if you're out in the open world and you're doing things and you come across these items and you get them and you don't want to, get back to your home base, yes, you can interface with the warehouse of different nodes without having to be a citizen.
Cool. And we have a question from Jazarus, who wants to know, can you give us an example of what additional character creation customization options Kickstarter backers may have access to that non-backers will not? I don't know if we want to give the specifics of that right now, but I think we probably will send out something in regards to that in the future.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question. What was it one more
time? Specifically, Kickstarter backers have additional character creation customization options, and they want to know what those customization options would be.
Oh, got it. I see, I understand. So yeah, that stuff will be defined further out. Once we get into I would probably say after Alpha 2, those particular cosmetic Kickstarter options, additional Kickstarter options, will be revealed and explained.
Yeah, and if you are a Kickstarter backer who has a reward that is specific, like a statue or things of those sorts, we will give you information far in advance. You'll get an email, you'll get notifications that those emails went out, things of that sort. And for the ones that we need information back from you from, we'll be gathering that information in advances, of course, because we would need your side of the thing before we can make the things. So keeping that all in mind, we will let you know. Our next questions are from our Russian team. We have Konstantin, maybe that's how it's pronounced, wants to know, it's like the letters are different, so I don't know. They want to know, will there be different potions for the potion launcher weapon, perhaps depending on the ingredients players use to craft them?
Yeah, I think not so much I don't think it would be ingredient based. It would be, I think, enhancement based. So I think, like, if the potion launcher does indeed make a debut within Ashes of Creation, the MMORPG, in that scenario, it would be obviously a ranged weapon, but it would be one where you could perhaps augment the types of potions and or damage that's done based on the enhancements that the weapon receives.
Great. And then Vladimir would like to ask, will it be possible to rent a game server to create a world with personal settings? Very interesting.
Oh, Vladimir.
That's a good question.
No, it would not be possible to rent a private game server to test things. No. Now, that's not to say that there isn't the potential for us to incorporate a test zone that is local, perhaps on a player's client, where you could try out your cosmetics or play with different skill builds and dummies and stuff. That's something we've talked about in the past, and we were considering incorporating into Apocalypse. But uh-oh, did I lose you?
No, I'm just
me?
not screenshot. Keep going.
Oh, yeah. I saw it die. Yeah, but that may be something we incorporate in the future, but we'll see if we have time for that. I don't know.
Cool, and I'm going to grab a couple from chat here. Will spears be primarily melee weapon or a ranged weapon?
Primarily melee.
Yep.
Let's see if there's any other ones in here, but we'll be wrapping up here in a moment. There's a lot of questions regarding the DPS meter, and I know we've had many discussions on that front, and I know you talked about it already, but I don't know if you want to talk on that front anymore. You feel like you've
I feel like I've addressed that
a million times.
Yeah. Significantly, and I know that it is a divisive subject, and there are definitely positions had within the MMORPG community in general. I am still of the opinion that those types of functions can be a bit toxic when it comes to the social aspect of MMORPGs. I know that very competitive players and guilds want to achieve the best, and in order to do so, they're of the opinion that they must have the most pertinent metrics and information available to them in order to do so. I think that, if I were to direct the social interactions that should be relevant in an MMORPG, at least like Ashes of Creation is, that cultivating good players and increasing the skill of your guild members and your friends through interaction, gameplay, and co-progression is the better way and more long-lasting way to do so. And I think it helps to develop that type of guild-based camaraderie. Now, I know that's very subjective, but at the same time, I'm making the game, so.
I mean, it's true. You get to make the decisions. And on that front, people have been discussing in chat regarding third-party tools and things of that sort. So I know we've talked about our stance on that before, but if you want to just readdress that, and then we'll kind of be wrapping up for today. And obviously, if you didn't get your question answered, they will still get answered on the forums. So if you left our question, if you had questions listed and you did fill them out in time, you will have your responses on the forums. So definitely go check those out. That means probably that your question was already asked before, and so the answer's already out there, and the lovely wonderful Toast has already provided you the answer, so definitely go check that out. I'll toss it back to you, Stephen.
Sure, and just to I think even elaborate, I saw someone say you can't push harder content without logs. I would
Mm.
fundamentally disagree with that. I would say that you can push harder content, but it becomes a function of trial and error. It becomes a function of perseverance. It becomes a function of continual attempts. And in and of itself, that is content that hardcore players and or more competitive players should be open to. In fact, I really love the concept of iron mode type games. There are certain games that I play where I play in an iron mode or Iron Man or iron mode, whatever type setting. And the reason why, it's not because I like the repetitive nature of having to go and do the same content over again. It's because I like the challenge of trial and error, the challenge of my learning curve being based on my experience rather than a data table. And obviously, I can take that experience and I can convert it into a data table. And data is a great thing to drive a lot of aspects of real life. But from an immersive standpoint, in my opinion, it is less an immersion factor. It is less a social factor. So that's kind of why I kind of feel that way about that.
All right. And I just want to take one more question, which is from Bad Potato. I do want to say that there are no such things as bad potatoes. Potatoes are amazing in all forms and shapes. They want to know, knowing that open dungeons are available for everyone, will the difficulty increase the deeper you dwell into the dungeon, to the point that only serious hardcore players can do them?
Difficulty is definitely a progressive component. So many of the dungeons will have entrances where you're going to see either lower level mobs, more closer to the entrances, and the deeper you delve into the dungeon, you're going to find rooms that have either more difficult mobs or more difficult mob mechanics. So, some rooms may have specific type of pathing mechanics or specific type of dangers that are terrain and environmentally based that coordinate and synergize well with the mobs that are present. Those types of deeper, darker types of interactions will be found deeper in the dungeon. So yeah, that can be expected.
Awesome. Well, that's going to wrap it up for our April development update. It has been a whole nother month, which has been nuts for us. Maybe next time we'll be back in the office. We'll see what it's like. Again, thank you and welcome for you all joining us to our home edition of this. Hopefully, it was still informative. We gave you a lot of information, a lot of cool development progress. And I think, our team's continuing to work hard and everyone is kicking butt even during these circumstances. So just a huge shout out to our teams. All of them are just doing amazing work. And I mean, you're getting to see the fruits of that work through, our dungeon crawls that we showcased here. You get to see all of the assets that have been created on the environment, on the character side, and so on and so forth. And that's going to all go towards you all being able to play and experience this really immersive, wonderful world that, people have envisioned in their minds. We don't have any dates, but we did say in our past, if you checked out the creative director's letter, and if you haven't done that, definitely head on over to ashesofcreation.com/news and read that. Stephen put out a wonderful letter. We also emailed it out to our team, so you should have an email regarding that too. That goes over all of the details of what we've been up to and what's going on in the future. And with that, we will be having our first PI playable test in May. We'll be bringing them on, and we'll be slowly increasing that up to Braver of Worlds, moving into the fall of this year. So fall 2020, we will be kind of opening it up to more of a non-NDA'd portion of it. And so you'll be probably seeing us stream a lot more at that time, and so on and so forth. So stay safe. Hope everyone's being, taking care of themselves and their families. We know that it's not always the easiest. Again, we have extended the cosmetic swap over, so we don't have any new cosmetics running during this time because we understand people's circumstances. And then, of course, we will have a new dev discussion coming out, so stay tuned for that. We definitely love your feedback. Jeff has put together some really great questions the development team and the design team are interested in, so the more feedback we can get from y'all, the better. I don't have anything else to add. Jeff, Stephen?
Yeah, just want to say, guys, hope you guys are all staying safe and healthy, and we really appreciate, as usual, the support and the interaction, and just having you guys a part of this journey means the world to us and the development team.
does.
So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And we'll see you next month for another development update. And we hope that you all are well. And of course, follow us all of the places. I think it's over here. Yes, Ashes of Creation. Super easy to find us. We are Ashes of Creation everywhere: Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit the follow button here if you're watching on Twitch. And we'll see you next month. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.